welcome back to the Less Doing Podcast. I'm your host, Ari Meisel. And today, I want to talk about email. First of all, the first time in a long time that I have recorded a podcast in a car. I'm driving right now, and I got inspired, so I wanted to record a podcast. So that's one thing. In addition, I'm using Otter.ai to record the podcast. If you haven't heard of Otter before, it's an awesome tool that lets you record either in person or with a bunch of integrations, including Zoom, and it transcribes in real time. But then you can search the transcription, and anywhere you search and you click on that word, it'll start playing the audio from that point. A really, really cool tool. We use it for our Zoom calls, and now I'm trying it on my iPhone. So if the sound is a little off, I apologize in advance, but I'm using a new tool, and I'm in the car. So what I want to talk about today is email. And email management is one of those things where everybody has their own opinion, and you know what they say about opinions. So I'm going to give you mine. And I'm going to do it by commenting on this article that I found that recently came out, and it's called 23 Email Management Best Practices to Declutter Your Inbox. Now, I'll tell you in advance that I agree with about a third, and I disagree with about two-thirds, and I'm going to tell you why. So let's get started. Number one, they say allocate a specific time for email every day. Now, generally speaking, I do not agree with this. They say in it that the average worker checks their email 74 times a day. I'm okay with that. I probably do that as well because I'm really effective with my email. You know, part of the thing is that people use email for the wrong things. And one of the things that we teach in our Replaceable Founder program is that you need to have multiple communication tools in your business and in your life that have different purposes. And ultimately, email is actually fairly low on the totem pole. There are a lot of things that you should be using for your business communication before things even get to email in the first place. So there's less email to begin with when you do it our way. But forgetting that, there's nothing wrong with checking email really quickly for a minute or two while you're walking down the hall or going to the bathroom even, if you can deal with those emails effectively. If you open your email and you have 100 things that are unread and it just makes you stress out, then yes, of course, you should not be checking your email. But the idea of sort of corralling yourself into a specific time in and of itself is not necessarily the right strategy. Now, having said that, generally speaking, you do want to do certain things at certain times that you're better at. But email as a task itself is something that you can sort of jump in and out of, again, if you're doing it effectively. And I'll tell you this, that if you ever email somebody and you get one of those autoresponders that says, hey, I only check email once a day or twice a day, I guarantee you that they are lying to you. So that's number one. Second one is hit that delete button. This one I agree with. We need to be faster and more freely deleting emails because a large percentage of the emails that people reply to don't actually require a response. So when you find yourself sending an email that says K or got it, don't do that. There is a boomerang effect to email. And the more email you get, or the more email you send, the more email you will get. Plus, you're thinking to yourself right now, well, how do I confirm to somebody that I got it? Well, if you're communicating effectively and you're using other tools like Slack or Trello or other things to communicate and manage projects, you don't need those kinds of confirmations because they're built into the system. Number three, labels, folders, and categories to the rescue. Big no-no. You do not need multiple folders. You do not need to spend the mental energy to label things, put things in folders, categorize them, and then the more mental energy to find them later. Whether you're using Gmail or Outlook, it doesn't really matter. They all have advanced search operators, and all you have to do is get better at searching. You don't need a folder for every person you communicate with or every project, because once again, email is not the right tool for a lot of those kinds of communications. 4, unsubscribe or mass unsubscribe. Also disagree with this one. You don't need to spend the time unsubscribing to things because all you need to do is set up a simple filter. A simple rule if you're using Outlook, a filter if you're using Gmail. And what it says is, if an email comes in and it has the word unsubscribe in it, skip the inbox. and put it into a folder that I like to call optional, because it is. Now let that sink in for a moment, because about 62% of the emails that you get have the word unsubscribe in them. And sure, there may be a newsletter that you love reading. You can exclude that if you want from the filter, or you can just say to yourself, it's not essential. And every now and then, maybe a couple times a day, maybe a couple times a week, maybe never, you will look in that optional folder knowing that you are now in optional mode, and you'll be able to effectively go through those emails. But the key is to remove those unimportant, non-essential emails automatically so you can focus on what is important. And as such, you don't need to unsubscribe from things because they're not hitting your inbox. 5, set up filters to send emails where they belong. Well, I just gave you one, which is the unsubscribe one, so I agree with that. But beyond that, you don't really need to get into the nitty-gritty of like, oh, if it has this word, put it in this folder, because you're not going to have those folders anymore. But generally speaking, this is a good idea to have filters set up that automatically move emails out of your inbox. I don't like ones that just label them or forward them, but if they're moving them out of your inbox, then that's a good thing. Number 6, multiple inboxes to the rescue. No, no, no. Email is the task. You don't want to have email 1, email 2, email 3, email 4 be the tasks. Email is a task. And when you are in email, you should have all your emails coming into one place. Because once again, you're not using email for the wrong things. And the things that are in email should be there. So why would you mentally separate them and think, oh, this is work, this is personal? No. Email is email. Number 7, convert your group email accounts into shared inboxes. 110% agree with this one. We use a tool called intercom.io. So all of those group emails come in there, and we as a team, my team, can manage those communications, and we can even communicate about them amongst ourselves without creating more email, because email should never be used as an internal communication tool. So that one I agree with. Number 8, apply the 80-20 rule. Yeah, okay, I think that the 80-20 rule in general is a good thing to think about. And you can apply this in a few different ways to email. One is to say, well, I get 80% of my emails between 11 and 3 p.m., so I will check my email more during those times, and less outside of that. That's one way to do it, of course. There are other ways to apply the 80-20 rule in general, but as a general productivity rule, it's a good thing. Number 9, pause your inbox. No, don't do that. Do not do that. Don't protect yourself from your email. That's like locking up the liquor if you're an alcoholic. It doesn't actually address the problem. Just more effectively deal with your email. And honestly, if you can't deal with your email, don't have email. And tell people that you don't do email. Number 10, touch it once. This I completely agree with as well. Also known as the Ohio method, only handle it once. You never want to look at an email and mark it unread and say, I'll come back to it later. No, deal with it right now. We teach 3 ways that you can deal with it, the 3 Ds. Deal with it, delete it, or defer it. Pick one of those, do it, and move on. Forgive the cat in the background. Number 11, flag emails that need more attention. Oh, no, please don't do that. Just defer them to a time when you can more effectively deal with them. You can use the built-in snooze function in Gmail. You can use tools like followupthen.com if you use something like Outlook. Get it out of the inbox and have it come back to you when you actually can give it more attention. Don't just mark it that way. 12, disable social media notifications. This is a sort of a personal preference. If you're using the unsubscribe filter, you don't need to do this because they won't come into your inbox. So, that's up to you. 13, set up default replies. I like this one. If there are things that people ask you on a regular basis, then you should have saved replies. You can have default replies, saved replies. There's all sorts of ways to name them, and there's all sorts of tools that let you do them, but have default replies. So if somebody always asks, hey, where can I buy your book? Have a sentence that says that. If somebody always wants to, if people are often asking you about podcast interviews, have a thing about podcast interviews. 14, deal with group emails right away. No, because you don't want to have group emails that are in your business. You do not want to use email as an internal communication tool. Because then what you get is email is a transactional communication tool, and internal communication is about conversation. So if you're using it for that, then what's going to happen is you get those 20 BCCs and forwards and you have no idea what's going on. So just say no to those kind of emails. 15, schedule a time to clean your inbox. No, you don't need to do that because you're more effectively managing your inbox now than you ever were before. Right? Right. 16, invest in tools. Yes, this I agree with. Things like Intercom and things like Follow Up Then, as I mentioned before. Those are the kinds of things that you do want to be using. 17, use keyboard shortcuts. Absolutely. In Gmail particularly, it's great. There's a tool called KeyRocket that is an extension for Chrome where when you do an action in Gmail, let's say you delete an email or something, it will pop up and say, hey, you could use this keyboard combination, which is great. So like GI will take you to the inbox, and J takes you to the next email, and E archives it. Those are definitely big time savers. 18, read top to bottom, write bottom up. This was an interesting one, but I still don't agree with it because you want to handle the email one time. You deal with it as it comes, or as you get to it, and move on from it. 19, use more than one email account. Totally fine, but have them come into one inbox. So if you want to have a personal email, if you want to have one for work, one for your other work, for your side hustle, that's fine, but they should all come into one inbox. And a little cool hack that you can use in Gmail is if you have your email address, let's say it's, johnsmith@gmail.com, you can say John Smith plus newsletter at gmail.com. So anything after the plus is ignored by the email sending tool or the email receiving, but you can use that to filter things if you want. 20, turn off notifications. I do actually agree with that one. There's no reason for you to get email notifications if you're checking it regularly and checking it effectively. Because email should not be a tool that pulls you in. It should be a tool that you go into when you're ready. Wow, the cat is really not happy in this car right now. Excuse me. And lastly, 21, take action immediately. This one I do agree with. I'm sorry, not lastly. I do agree with that one. Deal with it as it comes, as you get to it. 22, follow the 1 minute rule, saying if you can deal with it in 1 minute, deal with it right now. Yes, I can't agree with that more. People have this crazy idea that we'll have magic minutes later. Whenever it says it'll take me a minute, if something takes you a minute but you take 4 days to get to it, how long did it really take? And lastly, avoid oversubscribing to newsletters or updates. Well, yes, you should, but at the same time, if you have the unsubscribe filter set up, then you don't really need to worry about that so much. So those are some of my thoughts on somebody else's massive list of opinions on email. But if you want to find out more about how to really manage your email well, send an email to oao@lessdoing.com. And just put the word inbox zero, the words inbox zero, in the subject line. And we'll send you our free email management course, which will get you to inbox zero in no time. Email's a great tool. You just have to use it correctly. Thanks for listening. Make it an effective day.